Thank you very much for that wonderful message and song. I can just recall texts that I've learned that train up a child in the way they should go, and when they were old, they will not depart from it. Thank you for training your children. I fully believe that they are children of God who can be used by Him in His work in the years to come. And today is just a preparation of that great grand day wherein they will be doing that responsibility given to them by God. I just don't know, and that this will be the end of the Sabbath for the month of May. And I was expecting that this will be the end of my stay here, the last Sabbath that I've stayed here, because of the effect of that coronavirus, that when I first entered last December 4, in my visa, it was stamped that my last stay here will be June 4. And my return ticket was supposed to be, I'll be leaving June 4 from Labak Airport to Dallas, then Dallas to Tokyo, Tokyo to the Philippines. But lo and behold, I was informed, or we were informed, that the American Airlines stopped their flight and suspended even up to the end of June. What will I do? They said they are to refund the ticket. And good enough, my son said, we will better take another airplane ticket for you. It will be a direct flight from the U.S. to the Philippines. And so, he scanned some advertisement, and we got the Philippine Airlines. The flight going back to the Philippines is June 3, and supposed to be, it will go through Cebu in the mid-Philippines and back to Manila, the northern part. But after several weeks, we again receive a message that there is a change of flight. That instead of going to Cebu, I will directly be landed in Nehemiah in Manila, and that's better. He said, I keep on praying what will happen next, because I keep on looking at the news of what is happening, that those who will enter the Philippines will be quarantined. You see, OFWs who returned to the Philippines were quarantined for 2 months. They are to choose whether to stay in a boat or in a hotel, wherein those who will be staying in the hotel will be paying for their stay there. What will happen? But later, I was said that when we arrived in the Philippines, because the sister, the doctor sister of Van Brufas, who came here, and that she returned this week, and I've learned that she was already in Manila, and that she was quarantined. After the swab, she was assigned to a hotel, then instructed for 5 to 7 days that the result of that test will come out, and if it is If she is free, then she can go home. And I was, praying, what will happen to me when I reach the Philippines? But just this morning, my son again received a message that my flight on the 3rd day of June is again canceled. I just don't know what's the plan of God for me. If His plan for me is for me to go home within this month or next month, June, praise the Lord. And whatever His plan, I fully submit it to Him. It's His will. So, that's why it's the will of God, again, to stand here in front of you this morning. I can remember when it was my first time. The second time around, we have prepared something, or I have prepared something. Then later I discovered when I was here that my eyeglasses actually, I missed my eyeglasses in the house. But good enough, we have a brother here who said, I have a reserve eyeglasses there in the car. So, he lent me his eyeglasses, and in the afternoon, there was a knock in the room, in the house. When I opened it, there were three eyeglasses given to me. Praise the Lord. That's for the generosity of God through our brother. Just this morning, just coming over, I was invited to speak 2 weeks ago, and that I have prepared something. I place it in a stick, and I was asking my son, can you please print it so that at least whatever things will happen, I know that I have a printed copy of it. And it's easy for me actually to deliver it if it is in the printed. And you know what? He said, okay, I'll print it for you. So what happened is that he placed it in his email and print it. And so I have a hard copy of it. Whatever thing will happen, I have my eyeglasses and I have the printed copy. But you know what had happened? Something happened again. Coming over, we were already in the car in that university, Texas Tech University. Then I remembered, the stick, I left it in the house. Then my son said, I'll see, because good enough that he printed it and have it in his email. I fully believe that it is in my email. So, when he scanned it, he forwarded it to Brother Robert. And so, it is in his mail, and we can use it now. There are things sometimes that we do not know, but God knows ahead of us. The postponement of my flight on June 3, I don't know what is the plan of God, but I keep on praying that His will be followed. I'm not going to force Him, but I know that He has some plans for me. So this morning, when I was asked, actually, I have in my mind what to discuss with you. But as I look at some of my files, I have seen this topic, Nehemiah, the Lord's choice. I just don't know your name, but if you can replace the name Nehemiah and replace it with your name, and you are the choice of God to do the task waiting for you. Whatever task it may be, I don't know. But I fully believe that God had chosen you like that of Nehemiah in the right time, in the right timing, for him to be a worker of the Lord. So, the text is found actually in the book of Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 1 to 23, the whole chapter. But of course, I add some chapters or some text in other chapters in order for us to fully comprehend the Lord's plan for each of the individual, especially on the life of Nehemiah. Who is Nehemiah? That's the question today. Nehemiah, a cupbearer of King Artaxerxes. A cupbearer may appear to be an ordinary position, isn't it? Today, a cupbearer is an ordinary position. Somewhat like a job of a butler or a maid. After all, his duties requires him to get the king's wine and perhaps taste it from time to time. However, a cupbearer was a very important task which came with considerable rank in the Persian Empire. The cupbearer was well trusted by the king. If anyone had a power to bring harm on the king, it was his cupbearer, the most trusted individual. Imagine, he was a captive, a slave as that. Then, he will be trusted and become a cupbearer. Can you just imagine that? Sometimes we belittle ourselves. The position that we have in the company we are working. Or sometimes in a group where we are together, we belittle ourselves. Oh, if we are going to look at the life of Nehemiah, he was a slave. He was a captive. But yet he was appointed as a cupbearer, an entrusted person of a king of Persia. Isn't it a privilege? That's why, let's look at ourselves. Whoever we are, sometimes we belittle ourselves as if we are nothing. But in the sight of God, we are somebody to do His responsibility. It was the responsibility of the cupbearer to safeguard the king's drink, possibly saving the king's life. As cupbearer, Nehemiah had a great job. He had intimate access to royalty, political standing, and a place to live in a palace. It was a pleasant job that provided everything he needed. As a cupbearer, he is being entrusted. When they have visitors and they have a meeting, and they have some secret things to be talked about, the cupbearer was there to listen. Because the cupbearer was so entrusted by the Persian king. And so that was the position of others belittle. Can you just imagine? Equivalent of today's work, cupbearer is a waiter or a waitress. You look at them as, a meager work, a meager responsibility. But during the Persian Empire time, cupbearers is one of the greatest jobs entrusted by the king. But you know why he was taken? If we are going to look back to the text, and we will fully comprehend the text, the passages, especially in Nehemiah chapter 2, we can see there, and Nehemiah chapter 3, we can see there that Nehemiah was a cheerful individual. He was a happy man. When you look at him, you can consider that you said, oh, he is Nehemiah. Why? He is always reflecting a happy face. That's why the king of Persia was so happy taking him to serve him, because here is a person, a happy person, always smiling, a cheerful one. But you know what had happened? He was a cheerful individual, serving the king happily. But one day, if you read Nehemiah chapter 2 verse 1, while serving the king, his countenance was reflecting sadness. And the king noticed that one immediately. In other words, he was sad, and that sadness is being reflected in his face. And the king and people who saw him saw that he was sad, and as reflected there in the passage, the king was asking, you are not sick, but what happened to you? Why is it that your face is so sad? If you have problems that lingers into your mind, is it reflected in your countenance? What happened? Why is it that Nehemiah was so sad? There, he revealed what he learned about the situation of Jerusalem to the king, and requested if he be allowed to see and rebuild the temple and the walls of Jerusalem. And as we read, actually, the book of Nehemiah, what happened is that immediately the king, what? Permitted, allowed, without any hesitation. Do we have some relationship with other people, especially to the boss that we have? Because of our cheerful hearts and because we can deal with people, that whatever we request, that will be granted? Oh, Nehemiah has that kind of attitude. He was a cheerful individual. And when there was that reflection of sadness in his face because of the problem he received, wherein the king knows what is happening, and when Nehemiah spoke out and requested something immediately without hesitation, I just don't know what was that relationship. Or is it because Nehemiah, because of his kindness, because of his goodness, and because of his cheerfulness, he was respected by the king, that when the king heard of his request, that the king granted it immediately. You see what I am just contemplating as a Christian, as an individual. What was really the secret of Nehemiah? Why is it that he was able to convince the king immediately? Is it because of relationship? Is it because of his character? What happened then? Then Nehemiah was appointed as governor in the land of Judah. Imagine that. A waiter. Immediately, after the king received actually a report and a request that he was immediately appointed as the governor. What a trust, isn't it? Does your boss trust you? Does people around trust you? Oh, it is because of God's leading. Because the king knows that Nehemiah has a God. In his life, he reflected it. That's why he was immediately appointed as a governor in the land of Judah. It was a promotion for Nehemiah from a cupbearer to a governor. As a governor, he is to spearhead the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem as he requested. He was permitted, he was allowed. He was even given a letter introducing him to the leaders and governors of the nearby places in Jerusalem, that he will be supplied with all the needs. But you know, in this new responsibility, he has a lot of challenges. The challenges. One, opposition from the outside. You know, sometimes, and this is maybe normal, natural, that when you have that new position, especially when you have your new responsibility, that there are lots of challenges, especially if you are being belittled by individuals, by other people. What happened? In your new responsibility, you are being belittled, isn't it? That's why we can learn from this experience of Nehemiah and the Jews during the time, that they were belittled, they were mocked, they were criticized. Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 1 to 3. The first opposition from the outside, it is in the form of mockery and criticism. It is said, chapter 4, 1 to 3. But it so happened when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, that he was furious and very indignant and mocked the Jews. And he spoke before his brethren and the army of Samaria and said, "What are these feeble Jews doing? They fortify themselves. Will they offer sacrifices? Will they complete it in a day? Will they revive the stones from the heaps of rubbish, stones that are burned?" And Tobiah the Ammonite was beside him, and he said, "Whatever they build, if even a fox goes up on it, he will break down their stone wall." Can you just imagine that? How people belittle them, they mock them, they criticize them. Have you experienced that one? Maybe sometimes in our work and responsibility, we cannot hear that we are being belittled or being mocked, but there are some, news that are going on the deficiencies that you have had. Then you will hear it. But this is a wonderful experience that all of us might look at. That through the life of Nehemiah, we can see that if we rely on God, if other people will belittle us, we have a God who will support us and make us strong. So, what are those belittling? Sanballat, mocked. Then what are these feeble Jews? They said, a personal attack. It is a thought as though they are saying weak and silly people. No knowledge at all. What more? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of rubbish, insulting them in their desire to rebuild? Sometimes in the work assigned to us, there are those people, oh, you will give the task to him? How can he do it? He is weak. You see now? But let us look at the experience of Nehemiah and the Jews. They were belittled, they were mocked, they were criticized, yet they have done the responsibilities. It is because God assigned it to them, and it is God who is working with them. Yes, remember this, that God assigned us to a responsibility, and He is there working for us. Even, this is the belittling. If a fox go up, he shall break it down. Can you just imagine that? A fox can destroy actually the walls that they are building? Oh, they're making fun of them. How can he do it? He has an experience with that. You see now? What? You mean he will do that? How can he do it? You see, we have a God who will lead us. What was the solution? These are the challenges. The solution. Oh, second, they have the conspiracy. Oh, conspiracy first. Okay, the second, the conspiracy. Not only Sanballat, not only Tobiah, but there are those. In chapter 4, 7-8, there is, now it happened when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the Ashdodites heard that the wall of Jerusalem were being restored, and the gaps were beginning to be closed, that they became very angry. Okay? Can you just imagine that? Nevertheless, we made prayer to our God, and because of them, we set watch against them day and night. If we are going to look, there is a conspiracy which the enemy formed against them to stop the building by slaying the builders. The conspirator were not only Sanballat and Tobiah, but other neighboring people whom they had drawn into a plot. What more? All this was done merely out of envy and malice. They were so envied of the Jews. And what happened next? Aside from the conspiracy, there were also opposition from the inside, which is very much, hurting. In the form of complaints. That's the first. In chapter 4, verse 10, it says, and Judah said, the strength of the laborers is failing. That's a complaint. The strength of laborers are failing. And there is so much rubbish that we are not able to build the wall. Sometimes even our companions, our colleagues, insiders, there are lots of complainers in the work and responsibility that God has given us. Complain here, complain there, and complain there. And that's the work, actually, of the enemy of God if we are working for the Lord. Why? Because the enemy would like to hinder the work of God. So what happened? The duty of the leader is not to please the critics and the complainers. Our duty is to please the Lord. And one thing, the second, in the form of discouragement, in verse 12. So it was when the Jews who dwelt near them came, that they told us 10 times, from whatever place you turn, they will be upon us. You see, here it is, even in the group, there are some discouragement. That's the work of the enemy. If we have started doing our responsibility, imagine this, the enemy would like to hinder the work. But, good enough, God has given us an inspiration like that of Nehemiah, that in spite of the hindrances, complaints, and discouragement of his companions, colleagues, other Jews, that they keep on doing it because they fully believe that the work is not for them, but it is for the Lord. In chapter 6, verses 17 to 18, there is a wonderful statement in there. 17. Also in those days, the nobles of Judah, just imagine this. Also in those days, the nobles of Judah sent many letters to Tobiah. And the letters of Tobiah came to them. For many in Judah were pledged to him, because he was the son-in-law of Shechaniah and the son of Erah, and the son of Jehohanan, had married the daughter of Meshulam, the son of Berechiah. Also, they reported his good deeds before me and reported my words to him. Tobiah sent letters to frighten me. You can just imagine that. Insiders, Jews, nobles, were discouraging them and writing letters. During those times, letters are so frequent, isn't it? They sent letters to Tobiah, then Tobiah will send them back. But this time, no more letters. What is the kind of communication we are doing? Through text, through messages, you see? And what kind of message are we sending? To whom are we sending? And we are gathering, and what kind? Discouragement. What more? Reports, fake news, for us to discourage, to stop the work of the Lord. But good enough, my dear brothers and sisters, we have the life of Nehemiah to remind us that when we are working for the Lord, even though there are discouragement, even though there are colleagues who will spread the mistakes maybe we have done to actually make it big, for us to be discouraged. But yet, if we are working not for ourselves, but working for the Lord, go on, because the Lord is with us. What was the solution? Here was the solution of Nehemiah and his group to solve that kind of problem, or those challenges they are. Sometimes, I've learned something about using the word problems, that instead of problems, use the word challenges. It makes it lighter. Do not ask, what's your problem? But instead, ask, what are the challenges you are facing? You see? It makes it lighter, isn't it? So, they have the challenges. And now, here is the solution. What was the solution? They rely on the deity above all. In in Nehemiah chapter 4, verses 4, 5, and 9. Hear, O our Lord, for we are despised. Turn the reproach on their own heads, and give them as plunder to land of captivity. Do not cover their iniquity, and do not let their sins be blotted out from before you. For they have provoked you in anger before the builders. And verse 9, nevertheless, we made our prayers to our God, and because of them we set watch against them day and night. What was the first solution? Prayer to God. What a wonderful attitude. That if we commit challenges in lives, and here it is, awkward as we look at, instead of rebuking them, what happened? Go to God for prayer. And this is the number one solution of Nehemiah. Prayer is essential in overcoming opposition. We must rely on God's help. The Bible is full of passages discussing our need for prayer. If we want to be successful doing the responsibility given by the Lord, we must watch and pray. What a wonderful solution. That as we face a lot of challenges in our lives, our only weapon is to watch and pray to God. For He will give us the answer to all our challenges. Second, they respond to the duties assigned them, and their minds and heart is in their work. What a maturity in the minds of Nehemiah and the Jews. That in spite of the challenges they are facing, in spite of criticism, in spite of discouragement, what happened? In spite of belittling them, they responded to their duties assigned them. Their mind and their heart is in the work. They were united in the process of the work. Isn't it wonderful that in the responsibility that God has given us, we are going to respond it and do our responsibility unitedly, that we are one as children of God through prayers and do our responsibility as assigned to us. The word "we" expresses a unity of purpose and work. The Jews were working together as a result, and the work was accomplished. What a good example for us to look at. That if we will just be united in doing the responsibilities of God, whatever responsibility it may be, then He will give us success. Second, they were united in the protection of the word. In verse 9, there is that word, "we made our prayer to our God, and because of them we set the word 'we' there." They were united. While they all worked, they also all watched. Everyone had each other's interest at heart. To the Jews, the big picture was the main focus. As a worker of the Lord, we should keep our eyes open to the slightest hint of trouble. If each person is watching for the enemy, he will have a more difficult time getting his foot in the door. The strongest walls are useless if the gates are weak or gatekeepers are careless or disloyal. The Great Wall of China, according to history, was penetrated by enemies at least 3 times. And each time the guards were bribed. The nature of our work desperately needs strong gates and loyal gatekeepers. And this is a wonderful challenge to all of us today. Can you just imagine the Great Wall of China according to history? For 3 times, they were entered. They passed through the gate. The enemies passed through the gates. And according to the investigation, what happened is that the gatekeepers were bribed by the enemies. And the enemies were able to enter. In verse 13 to 18, they were united in the progress of the work. Therefore, I positioned men behind the lower part of the wall at the openings, and I set the people according to their families, with their sword, their spears, and their bows. And I looked and arose and said to the nobles, to the leaders, and to the rest of the people, "Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord great and awesome, and fight for your brethren, your sons and daughters, your wives and your houses." And it happened when the enemies heard that it was known to us that God had brought their plot to nothing, that all of us return to the wall, everyone to his work. What a wonderful responsibility, isn't it? So it was from that time on that half of my servants worked at construction, while the others half held their spears and shields and bows and wore armors. And the leaders were behind all the house of Judah, those who built on the wall, and those who carried burdens, loaded themselves, so that with one hand they worked at construction, and the other hand held the weapon. And verse 18, every one of the builders had his sword guarded on his side as he built. And the one who sounded the trumpet was with me. They were united in different responsibility. As the work progressed, they were in it together until it was completed. It was one, each one had different function, but they were all united in the work. Wherever we are working, to whatever company, hospital, clinics, remember that you are a daughter, you are a son of God. And you are a reflector, and you are bringing the name, the Seventh-day Adventist, to wherever you are. That we must have to protect. And as an Adventist, we respect Sabbath as a holiday. We are reminded the don'ts of what to eat and not to eat. That is a reflection that we are a Seventh-day Adventist, and we are bringing his name to our colleagues. That they will know, oh, yes, I know, he is or she is an Adventist. We cannot give him the Saturday work. Oh, we cannot serve this kind of food. Why? Because we have a member, a Seventh-day Adventist in there. What a reflection to the group. That they know what kind of food we are eating and what day of work we are working. They respect it. Why? Because we all are united in spreading the gospel through the actions and the work we are doing in the responsibility that God had appointed us in companies and different areas. And then, what a wonderful thing. This is essential to be successful in the responsibility we are in. Unless we work together as a team, it will accomplish nothing of eternal value. This church will not progress. No members will be added. Even it will diminish if we will not work together and be a reflector to the place we are staying and working. The third there, Nehemiah set an example of transparency. In chapter 5, in the book of Nehemiah, verses 14, 15, 16, and 17. So Nehemiah chapter 5, 14, it says, moreover, from the time that I was appointed to be their governor in the land of Judah, from the 20th year until the 32nd year of King Artaxerxes, 12 years, neither I nor my brother ate the governor's provision. But the former governors who were before me laid burdens on the people, and took from them bread and wine, beside 40 shekels of silver. Yes, even their servants bore rule over the people. But I did not do so because of the fear of God. What a good example as a leader. He was not taking advantage of his position to become rich in the responsibility that God has given him. As elaborated in here, that the former governors before him, they became burden to the people and even took from them their bread and wine. And not only that, including their servants who were taking advantage of the position as governor. But to Nehemiah, he set a good example for us to emulate. Not to take advantage of the position that God has given us, but to set a good example that we have a God whom we feared and serve. This happened because Nehemiah, being a leader, set an example for his countrymen to emulate by being transparent in all transactions and not taking advantage of the situation for his benefit. This happened because Nehemiah honored God in all his transactions. What a wonderful life of Nehemiah, showing to us to emulate. Working for the Lord is very challenging. The enemy is always there ready to hinder the work. But the Lord is good, that He gave us the life of Nehemiah for us to learn how to combat the wiles of Satan by one, having dependence to God through prayer. Two, by doing our responsibilities diligently through our united efforts. And third, by being transparent in all our transactions. What a wonderful example. Today, we have no more walls of Jerusalem to be put up, to be rebuilt. But what is the responsibility and the task that needs our immediate support for our church? As I look at it today, I should be frank with you that there is a need for us to have a combined effort of supporting the needs of our educational institution, the Labak Junior Academy. It needs our concerted effort for us members of the family of the Labak Church that we need to support for this to continue on, so that not only us who will be benefited of the love of God, but also the children, even the children of our neighbors, whom we have convinced for them to come and study at Labak Junior Academy. I can relate to you my experience. In reality, I am a product, I'm converted, and in the educational institution, Adventist educational institution. I was a faithful, my parents are faithful Roman Catholic members. We have even a priest, a relative, who comes to visit our house in those times. And you know, when my parents are still alive, they ask us to go to church with them. And of course, being an obedient son and children, we go with them. We went with them attending the church, the Roman Catholic Church. But you know, because I came from a poor family, after high school, I went to Davao City and worked there as a working student in a motor pool shop. And in the evening, I go to school, and in the daytime, I work in a shop. The owner of that shop has 45 jeepneys, and there were 32 of us working in there. I was one being a working student. And there was a time when it was examination time. I have no money. So I said, I went back to South Cotabato, to our place, and asked for the tuition from my parents. But you know, my parents were not able to give. I cried. But still, I went back, and that semester, I was able to finish. Then I promised that I will no longer return to continue my study if that is the situation. I went back after that school year, after that semester, I went back to our place and look for work. And one of the conductors actually of the jeepney, you know, in the Philippines, we have a jeepney to transport, and there is a conductor who collect the payment for the fare, and the driver keeps on driving, and, you know, I was the conductor. And, you know, the owner of that was a Seventh-day Adventist of that jeepney. That on Saturday, there's no work, and because we were not Adventist during that time, we were going somewhere. What we have earned for the whole week will be spent that Saturday at night, and in Sunday we'll go back. But you know, the owner of the jeepney said, if you are doing that always, it's nice if you will go to Mountain View College and be a working student. I was convinced. I went to Mountain View College together with the driver who was my friend. The driver was the grandson of the owner. We were together. We went to Mountain View College, and there I met Jesus. I was baptized and even joined the student missionary for the year as a working student, you know. And I thank the Lord. I thank the Lord. Because of that educational institution who brought me. It was recommended to me by the owner of the jeepney, and I learned about Jesus. And that's the purpose of the Labak Junior Academy. To introduce to them Jesus as Savior, to bring them to salvation. You see, my dear friend, I fully believe that we lack that ability to preach. We lack that ability actually to give Bible study. But we have the ability to convince our neighbor and friends, especially their children, to bring and study at Labak Junior Academy. For in this academy, they will know Christ. If not for Mountain View College, I might not be here, standing before you. It is because of that I have that firm decision of following Jesus and doing His responsibility assigned to me, whatever it may be. You see, we have a lot of people who are just waiting that somebody will preach to them. That the owner of the jeepney actually preach to me and give me Bible studies? No. He just asked me, if that's the case, if you want to finish, go to Mountain View. I went to Mountain View. Not only that I have finished my education, but I have learned Jesus. Can you recall that young maid of Naaman? That young maid of Naaman actually was a captive from Israel. She was brought, and Naaman actually introduced her to her wife. That young maiden was so diligent in her responsibility that as a maiden, as a servant, as a maid, they are not respected. They are treated as animal. But you know, because that young lady was so diligent in her responsibilities, in her duties, that when she suggested about the case of Naaman, that she can be healed if she will go to Israel, Naaman not only followed, but you know, he was not only healed, but if you can look at the Bible, Naaman know that there is God, no other God except the God of Israel. I fully believe that we have that good responsibility in our heart like of that of the maiden. That little maiden of Naaman. We cannot preach, we cannot give Bible studies, but we can convince them that if they could come and study at Labak Adventist Academy, Junior Academy, they will know Jesus. And that time will come when Jesus will appear. We will be together, and they can say, thank you for convincing us to study at Labak Junior Academy, because I know and meet Jesus. Yes, this is the responsibility that God is calling us to do. That we will join together in convincing others, so that supporting the work of Labak Junior Academy is the work of the Lord, that others will see that we have a God and follow Him. May God bless us all.